There we
Okay,
are.
good morning, everybody. And I'm just trying to do two things at once. Okay, Coffee Break Insights. Today is May 12th, 2021,
Yeah.
and we are Marianne and Lionel Francis, and this is our Coffee Break Insights. The content of all our episodes is our opinion and should not be construed as anything else. And all content is protected by copyright, and you may not use our content in any shape or form without our joint written permission. So thank you for that. So as I post a little hello, I'm going to let you get started for us, Lionel.
Yeah. So let's just come into close our eyes for just a moment. Figure out whether you're on the call live or not. And just take one deep breath in. Come into that breath and exhale whenever you're ready here. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah. So today, as you open your eyes, today the topic that Marianne and me want to discuss is the death space, and in connection with that, materialization. So this is interesting because the first thing that occurs to me as I share that is the breath actually has a lot to do with, our first breath coming into life, but it also is our last breath as we go into death. But these cycles also happen throughout our lives, right? And so this is what we mean by the death space. It literally means a dying off of the old ways of being. And one reason why I wanted to bring this topic is for me, a lot of the death space, and I've been through so many now, is about constant change and the unknown, and about just simply, and this is for everyone, but it's a surrender to the uncertainty and the unknown, and of the unknown as well. And that's been really hard because there's no mental knowing, there's no control over, there's no ability to be able to understand what's actually going on in that moment, other than that there's a big change going on and the old ways of being no longer work, and the attachments and all the illusions need to be let go, and a new way of being and an identity of stepping forward. So for me, this piece was about surrender and then coming into my masculine. Now, so that's a piece for me. Now, I'll just leave it there for now, as I'm already sharing a lot of pieces. But what can you add to this?
Yeah, I just want to say Melinda just popped in with a little hello. So hi for your welcome. And
hello.
So it's been really interesting because that has really come forward. And I realize now it's like when I look back that I was really starting to feel a very intense death process that that was coming through. And this actually at least easily a week ago, a little over a week ago now. And on this weekend, really feeling it. And so coming into this place of all of a sudden it's kind of like the void, because nothing seems to be happening. Nothing seems to be moving. And you're just kind of there in limbo. And Diana also just joined us. So hi, Diana.
Hey.
If you guys have any questions or any thoughts, any that you want to share, please post. So it's interesting, and that made me realize a lot of things. And then Lionel and I, we were talking about it last Saturday when we got together and actually working through some of that. It was really interesting because it brought me to a whole new depth of understanding for myself and what I bring people. I've had this come through my whole life, so I know it's something that was just there that I came in with, of saying what needs to be said, and if it's something that the person is not willing to see for themselves, that has that can cause some tension for the person and rejection, but it's bringing to the surface what needs to be brought to the surface to be released, because it's not what the person is about. That it's a distortion that they're carrying that they need to be brought about. And then it also made me realize that my life has been death process over death process over death process in everything I've tried to do. And for some people, it's not quite so intense because they do a certain thing and then they do it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And nothing has lasted for a really long time except doing my work. That's the only thing. And the shape, the form it's taken has gone through its death process, and it's kind of going through that right now.
Yeah.
And I realized that the death process is really about refining, get to a more refined level within oneself or within one's expression, within what one is doing.
Another piece to that, though, is I see Melinda's comment here, because the ache of grieving is another part of this process, because all this death and change, just like we literally mourn the dead people, but we also mourn people that pass on, but we also mourn our own inner changes and death. So a lot of this is also the grieving and the loss, because it kind of, I always experience this, a lot of grief and loss in my family too, that I came in with, but it really also deepens my abilities to feel more, to be more aware, to be more present. So it's changing and refining, and it's also feeling and grieving and all of these things. It kind of, it builds you, it creates you, it strengthens you. So this piece that you're bringing in, Melinda, here with the ache of grieving, I feel you through going through this identity change as well. And by the way, hello, Ali, for saying hi. So that just wanted to add that piece in, because I can feel that as you talk about how much death you've also been through. There is a lot of that, and it's like, how do you, and this is maybe a question also, I mean, that you guys are sitting with, because it's like, how can you go through all this death and all this change and all this letting go and create and manifest? And so this is why the materialization piece comes in as well. So it's hard to do that from a constantly evolving and changing death space to create something. So that's and for me, just to mention what I feel coming up with that is, the materialization really happens when we come deeper into alignment of who we are. And that's also what this death process is facilitating. The fastest way possible is to die off, just like people that go through a near-death experience may get really in touch with what matters to them, because they feel what it's like to lose it all, to disappear, to go. So they get into touch, and maybe you can share even more about that, Marianne, because there's other aspects around that, but it's one of the aspects that I'm bringing in here about materialization, because it also is a very efficient way to materialize if you can use it in the right way, and you go with that flow and not against it, like you were saying, and you see the distortions and you allow everything to come up, and then you change, and then you use that to efficiently move forward. So that piece,
it's an interesting process, and so there is physical death, and when we usually say death, people have a tendency to think physical death immediately, but and that's a really good thing to look at, to refer to, because it has such a final feeling to it of the physical death and moving into a whole other form of being. But it's about every time something is decaying and there's old and it needs to be let go of. So it takes a lot of kind of a balancing act, but the balancing act is about coming into alignment with oneself and really being connected into oneself and in the present moment. And you brought up you brought up the whole thing with identity, and that's a really big piece. It's a lot of times the grieving can be
Are you still there, Marianne? You just cut out for a second here. Hello? Are you there, Marianne?
Whoops.
There you are.
I just flipped out. Okay. That's my internet. Sorry about that. So coming into that alignment for oneself and into the present moment, and really working best to let go of everything else, because everything else is what needs to be let go of. Anything that is not present moment. So I think we all have our challenges around that, the way we approach life, and stuff in terms of what keeps us coming into that present moment kind of thing. And so of course then that ties right into what Lionel was talking about, materialization. And you can only manifest, materialize, create when you are in the present time space moment, because otherwise you're referring to something that is not alive, basically.
Yes. Yeah, right. So Melinda is saying here, so to live is to die, or life is a constant cycle of life and death. Yes, essentially
Yes.
it is. I mean, just look at nature, right? It recycles itself. The key is to use those cycles, like Marianne's saying, and to become really present to the aliveness that's here in the present moment from which you create, because everything outside of the present moment is really non-existent. You can't create from that space. So the death process actually takes you closer to being in that present moment, which is where all your abundance is, all the possibilities can be manifest. So that's what's coming up for me to share. So yeah.
And also to think about, if you're like working on a project and you suddenly feel yourself going through a death process with that project, you get into observation mode more and start to like not and observe, but feel into the different things, because it doesn't mean that the whole thing has to go, but maybe it's simply how you're approaching it that has to die off,
or that it needs to change form.
Right, or change form, or there's a particular part of the project that needs to die off because something new is going to come in. And then we have to also always keep in mind that when there's a dying off, there's a new that's that needs and that wants to come in, and it's a higher state of being. So even in this,
I just say the same for relationships. Not just a project, the same thing, just to add that, because many people are in that space of going through relationship changes and not knowing what's dying off and what the new is coming in. That's often the hardest. So yeah, but anyway,
and relationships, but partnerships, whether they're intimate or work partnerships. I mean, Lionel and I are going through this whole piece where we're each going through this death process, and how that comes into play with the work that we're doing together. So that's
how that comes into play with play.
Yes. Yeah, right. Exactly, and that's a real balance and dance. So I want to shift it from balance to dance, because it's this flow. And I wrote an article, and I have not yet put it on my blog post, but talking about that flow from being to doing, but it's also from living to death. It's from going from one thing to the other, and really becoming more aware of that flow.
Yeah.
And as you're more aware of that, even that being and doing, because that gets into that death and life cycle, and really feeling into something, so you have a better sense of when it's coming to an end, when there's this kind of contraction of energy, and just being with it and watching, and then something else opens up. Go ahead.
And my question, while you're sharing this, Marianne, to the audience here, to you guys listening, is: can you feel the shifts already in Marianne and me now, since last times? Because before the last call we had, we were not fully going through this death process yet, but now the energy's actually already really shifted. I can perceive the energy's already shifted through what we went through. So I'm just wondering, just for you guys to be curious and observe, what are you noticing that's shifting? Because this flow is increasing, and the energy momentum is increasing, and the potential is stronger, and the present moment here. So these are all the shifts that are coming in from having gone through these shifts with our work together and in our lives, so individually as well. So just for you guys to notice, because this is also happening for you at some level, because it's actually a collective shift too. This is happening on a world level. Many people are not aware of what's happening, but those who are and very sensitive, they're going to pick up that this is going on at a bigger level right now. So I just wanted to throw in that piece, and just the curiosity for you guys to begin to reflect on that. Anyway,
so it's that piece. I'm kind of in what's sitting in my mind is Oh, okay. First, I want to read Melinda's comment. I didn't watch yet the last one, but I'm feeling it in me as you're speaking. Yeah. So, yeah.
Mhm.
So kind of coming back to this, what was sitting in my mind of like, well, how to work through this better. And so, I think one of the biggest things we can do is slow down, and just kind of take a couple extra breaths in the moment
Yeah. Yeah.
and really feel into what you're feeling. Feel into, take that extra time.
Yeah.
Life isn't going to go any faster. Everything out there is is pushing us to slow down, anyways.
Yeah.
We're having a gas crunch, at least on my side of the country, because of
Mhm. Mhm.
some mess ups and some attacks and stuff like that. But that also is a forcing to slow down. If something
Yeah.
like that happens, it's like stop, come into
Yeah.
place, come into being with yourself, and that alignment with the present moment, and becoming
Be-
aware of what we're aware of.
because also what wants to happen is within this death space, and this is for you guys as well, is the slowing down brings you in touch with parts that are wanting to come through, or insights, awarenesses
Mm.
that are going to take you to that higher level from which things are going to operate very differently, more efficiently, more effectively. You're going to, and for me, and this is a piece to add, I've lived from also from an, let's just call it, I've lived from an identity that was so strongly ingrained and not connected to who I really am as a masculine force in this world, that just didn't align with making things work. I couldn't make them work traditionally in the workplace. As a lawyer that I've been for many years, I just couldn't make things work. And that's part of my death, is to come into that higher place within myself, slow down, take those breaths, connect in, but also as I go through it, and then come to that higher, constantly higher place from which things work better, more efficiently, more aligned. And it can be the hardest thing ever, because if you're a person that's built up all of these structures and identity pieces, and how you know yourself to be and how you think things should work, and it just, at some point, these things have to fall away to be birthed into a higher place. So that's a part, and we've kind of already said that, but I'm just rephrasing it for you guys to
Yeah,
really get this piece.
yeah, good one. I've seen Melinda has fear is what comes first, and it's a small paralyzing of the physical and mental, pushing for slowdown and observation. Actually, I want to take that a little further, because actually what comes up first is the loss of control. That brings
Mm-hmm.
on the fear. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's that need to control, or that wanting to be on top in charge, which is basically in control, and knowing what's coming up ahead. That's
Yeah.
control. And when there's a sense of that, I don't know anymore, I can't control this, that's when the fear pops in, or
Yeah.
can. So taking even
Yeah.
looking past the fear, because there's something behind the fear that made the fear pop up.
Right.
That's what I'm sensing just in this piece. And yes, so that loss, that fear, and then it's that fight or flight mechanism. And so just sitting with that and noticing that without responding, without allowing ourselves to go in that fight or flight, or
Right.
that paralyzing of physical and mental, and just breathing into that. So you feel that, just kind of breathing into that, and
Yeah.
feeling that, even if it's just for 10 more seconds, literally,
Yeah.
5 more seconds, 10 more seconds, that's going to start slowing you down and kicking something else in place, than the usual fear, control, etc.
And this is also where I'd add, for all of you guys, often for me, expression and sharing truth is very important. And I think for many of you as well. And so it'll be easy, or it will be easier to do this together, which is what comes to mind is the play program, is to really do this together in a group, where you go through these processes and you have an opportunity to share and do this together. Because doing it alone fully is often hard, because in connection you get to share, you get to express, you get to reflect, you get to move, you get to change, or individually. So for that, obviously you can book sessions as well, individual sessions, but to seek support, because this process is intense, and it's often really difficult to do it completely alone. So.
And we're going to finish off with a comment from Allie. And when the control comes in, it is harder to allow ourselves to pause. Yes, but
Yes.
you know, when you start to notice that control, you know, whatever you're noticing, so it's taking that breath into it. And again, even if it's only for 5 seconds the first time, that's a step in the right direction. You know, do it for as long as you can, and
Yeah.
feel that, you know, that constriction that comes with, that's actually comes in with control. And it's that constriction of the purity of your being and who you really are.
And for you, Ali, I can feel that control is a way actually for you to keep going. So for you, actually, the allowing yourself to pause is the first step into surrendering that control to break through. So this is a very important piece for you, because it's a very you're very driven. I can feel the drive in you, and so that piece is extra hard for you to actually go and pause. So that piece is what comes up. So yeah. But yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for the coffee break, guys, and hope this was interesting and useful, and is making the wheels in your mind turn so that you can shift into something higher for yourself, and something, and go into something new for yourself. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on Friday. I can't think of what the topic is offhand, so we're going to just die off to that one, to knowing. And that's at 1. And later today at 1, we'll be talking with Marlou about her experience of the Pure Life Awakening Intensive, if you want to join us at then. And so thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Diana and Melinda and Allie and whoever else is watching.
Bye-bye, guys. See you on later or on